another interesting topic of English language. Although direct language is the easiest to understand, but sometimes we respond better to more creative wording. Good writers use some techniques to build imagery and give words more power. For today's lesson, we have chosen the two more important and frequently used figures of speech, which are similes and metaphors. They both compare two things that are different from each other. What are they? How they are different from each other? And why and when do we use them? That's what we are going to discuss in this lesson. But before discussing what similes and metaphors are, we need to know what figurative language is. Figurative language is the use of descriptive words, phrases, and sentences to convey a message without directly saying it. It means we refer to something indirectly. There are different types of figures of speech that are used in modern writing. They include simile, metaphor, personification, alliteration, hyperbole, etc. The first one we are going to talk about is simile. A simile creates a comparison between two unlike things or objects using the word like or as. Examples of similes can be found in everyday conversations, but a true simile must compare to unlike things, having something in common. For instance, we can't compare Alize with Jenny as they both are females. To create a simile, we need two unlike things. So if we say a woman is like a tea bag, it's an example of simile where we have compared two unlike things having the similarity of being stable and strong in tough circumstances or situations. One more example of simile is the cat sat in the chair like a king. Over here, the cat's sitting posture is being compared to that of a king who relaxes in a special chair that's reserved for him and not for any other person in the kingdom. So similes compare two different things that don't usually go together. Some other famous similes that we often hear are as cute as a kitten, as light as a feather. What's a metaphor? A metaphor is also a comparison of two different things, but without like or as. It makes a description more interesting or powerful. For instance, if we say someone has a sea of knowledge, we are using a metaphor to express how smart or educated he is. Knowledge and the sea are not exactly related, but figuratively they are, because they are both immense things that are difficult to measure. By putting them together, you can accentuate how vast a person's knowledge is. Therefore, we can say that metaphors directly compare one thing to another for rhetorical effect. A metaphor states that one thing is another thing, or you can say that thing A is thing B. Have a look at these examples. Her eyes were diamonds. Life is a highway. Life is considered as a highway where we have to go through hardships and keep going. Some other examples are a river of tears, a fountain of delight. Through this method of comparison, you can present abstract ideas as concrete ones. Let's see how similes are formed. We can form similes in two ways. The first one is to use the word as followed by an adjective or an adverb, then the word as again followed by a noun. For example, as light as a feather, as fluffy as cotton candy. The sheep was as fluffy as cotton candy. And the other way is to use the verb first, then the word light, and then a noun. For example, smells like a rose, slept like a baby. I slept like a baby last night. How to form a metaphor? The simplest way to make a metaphor is to use this pattern. First, you will use noun or pronoun, then the be form of the verb, for example, is, am, was, were, etc., then any article, if the noun after it is countable and singular one, and then your second noun. For example, she is an angel, my hands are eyes, the shark's teeth are daggers. Since the shark's teeth are quite sharp, that's why they have been directly called as daggers. But not all metaphors are written in this simple pattern. Here are a few more examples of metaphors. Even though they are not written in the same pattern, they do compare to different nouns. For example, my boss fired the snake. The employee is being called a snake over here as he was sneaky and disloyal. He has a heart of stone. The bride wore a dress of snow. As the dress is soft and white, it is directly being termed as snow. Similes versus metaphors. Similes and metaphors are often confused. The main difference between a simile and metaphor is that metaphors are the thing while similes are like the thing. For example, my kids are rainbows of joy for me. Her voice is like a sweet song. Another difference is that similes use the word like or as to compare things, whereas metaphors directly state a comparison. And the last difference is metaphors are more abstract. It means they suggest the meaning by creating an image for the reader, whereas a simile creates a picture by exemplifying it. So in short, what you need to remember is that we use the word like or as in similes, but we don't in metaphors. Let's see what function do similes or metaphors perform. Similes highlight one specific meaning while metaphors allow different interpretations. For example, if someone says she is as innocent as an angel, he just talks about one quality of that girl, that is innocence or simplicity. But when someone says she is an angel, he might mean that she is kind, helpful, patient, modest, innocent, simple, etc. So you can say that with similes the comparison is easy to understand while metaphors can communicate various emotions. Why do we use similes and metaphors? We use them to show comparison, to emphasize or stress any idea, object or character, to create humor, to make something clear or easy to understand, to say something in a new way, to help the reader or listener form a picture in his mind, or to make something interesting and descriptive. We often use similes and metaphors in stories, music, and poetry to create good descriptions. They are also used in everyday conversations to add color and beauty to language as they create a vivid picture in the reader's mind. Similes and metaphors are both useful types of figurative language. The main problem is when they are overused. They become cliches. A cliche is a saying, image, or idea which has been used so much that it sounds terribly uncreative. Let's have a look at cliched metaphors and similes. The examples of cliched metaphors are a face or a clock, time flies, fish out of water, raining cats and dogs. All these metaphors have lost their initial and implied meaning due to their excessive use. Their non-literal meanings have become almost literal. Do you know that many famous sayings and idiomatic phrases take the form of metaphors because their meanings are not literal like metaphors? Like time flies is an idiom. Examples of cliched similes are strong as an ox, sick as a dog, white as snow. We use these similes when we don't have the energy or inspiration to think of a new way to express an idea. Every time we use a cliched simile or metaphor in our writing, we miss the golden opportunity to make the scene vivid and characters distinct. That's why we must avoid using these cliches in our writing and create our own natural and innovative similes and metaphors. It's time for you to check your understanding of the topic. Here are some sentences that contain similes and metaphors. You have to identify the two things in each sentence that have been compared. For example, in the first sentence, the cat's fur has been compared to a blanket of warmth. Now it's your turn to do this activity with the rest of the sentences. Here are the answers. Can you come up with metaphors of your own and explain their meaning? Have fun with this activity and do share your examples in the comment box. Education is one thing no one can take away from you. So keep on adding to the treasure of your knowledge. Thank you.